Hello everyone, welcome to Coder in Boots. So in this video we are going to discuss about the topic how to create a GitHub repository and push the code. Okay, this is basically for beginners and it will help you to understand how a GitHub works, how you can create repository and how you can use GitHub for the version control of your programs or projects. Okay, so the topics that we are covering here are one is the fundamentals, second is how to create the repository, third the clone operation, then branch operations, then commit, push and pull. So before getting into the details, let's understand the fundamentals of GitHub or basically Git. Okay, so the concept is the same for almost all repositories like version control systems like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, etc. Okay, so we have something called a central repository or a remote repository. Okay, so that is what we have in the on the cloud. Okay, on the cloud means or on see, GitHub is available only on cloud, but in case of GitLab we can have the installation in on-premise servers as well. So we can have the cloud version or the on-prem version. So the central repository is a remote repository. Okay, and then we will have a local repository. So that is basically where the developers work on. So the remote repository and a local repository. So let me draw it in a paint and explain you. Okay, so we have a remote repository and we'll have a local repository. So always the reference will be with the remote repo. The final commits will happen to the remote repo. So before the developer starts the work, so what he will do, he will either clone or pull the code. Okay, he will have to copy the code from the remote repo to his local repo. Okay, local repo. So the same operation, this will be performed by all the developers who is using or who is referencing the remote repo. They all will copy and create a local repo. They all will work on the local repo. Okay, so what they will do is they can basically make changes, okay, commit, okay, and commit the changes. So this will all happen in the local repo. Okay, and finally what they can do, they can push the code back to the remote repo. Push the changes means they can push the changes back to the remote repo. Okay, so during that time what will happen, it will commit all the changes. Okay, so whatever changes happen in the local copy, right, all those changes will be pushed back to the remote repository. Okay, so in this way we can say one cycle is complete. Then again when the developer, this we can call this guy developer A. So next day when developer A starts work again, what he will do, he will again pull the code back. Okay, so pull the latest changes, so that means he will repeat the operations again. So pull the code, pull means what, he will again copy all the changes. So because it's see, when he pushes the changes back to the remote repo, there can be other changes from other developers as well. Okay, so that means whatever he pushed, so his local repo will be in a state with the final push, right? So the changes till the final push were there in the local copy, but next day or maybe next week, so when the developer A comes back, this remote repository will have some other changes as well, right? Some other developers might have committed, so he need to be up to date with, the developer A need to be up to date with the latest changes. So for that he need to do what, he need to pull the code, right, then make changes, that means his development work, right? So he will add features or maybe modify some features, etc, etc. So he will make the changes, then he will commit changes, right, and then again push the code, push the changes. Okay, so here also what will happen, this will be like this. Pull the code means it will pull locally, right, then this will happen locally, make changes, commit changes and push it back to the repo. Okay, so this is the fundamental of Git. Okay, so the earlier version control systems, like before Git, there were some other the earlier generation version control system. It was not working with this concept of local repo and the remote repo. It was all working with single repo concept. Okay, so that means all the changes were committed directly to the the remote repo or the central repository. So now with this Git type repositories, what happens is it has a concept of remote repo and local repo, and the synchronization happens between these two, and the commits happen between these two. Okay, so I hope this fundamental is clear. Okay, so now let's go back to our PPT again. Okay, so that is what you see here: central repository and the developer repository. Developer repository is the local repository. It will be in his developer laptop. Now let's understand the life cycle of a file within Git repository. So any file, unless you add it to the Git, add it to the Git means if you simply copy a file to a folder within your repository, it won't get added. It is an untracked file. So there is a command or an operation to add that file to make it tracked. So unless it is untracked, unless it is tracked, it won't be, the changes on the file won't be tracked anywhere, or it won't be committed anywhere. So first you need to make it tracked. So there is an add operation. So in Git we have something called add command. So using the add command we need to make it tracked. Once we have it tracked, then if you commit the changes, what will happen? This tracked file will get committed to the repository. So there is a commit command. So when we hit the commit command, the tracked files will, the latest status of the latest version of the tracked file will be committed. So file or files will be committed to the repository. Then once you issue once you trigger the push command, the changes will be pushed to the remote repository. So the local file, initially it is untracked, then make it tracked, then commit, then push. So then your local file will move to the remote repository. For example, let's say you add a file here. So you add a file here. Initially simply add it. What will happen? It will be untracked. Then using git add, you can make it tracked. So once you commit, what will happen? The changes in the files will be committed to the local repo, and once you push it back, what will happen? The file will be pushed to the remote repository. So that means the file will go above. So that is the life cycle of a file. Now let's get into the action. So I have opened the GitHub console. So you can create free accounts in GitHub. So you just need an email address. You can sign up and create a GitHub account. So in this account, you will see a sign like this. New repository. So GitHub has a concept called projects and repositories. So I'm talking about, I'm in the repository. So repository is a place where you can commit the code. So we have to create, for committing your code, what you need, you have to create a repository. So wherever you find the option create repository, that is where you need to click. So here in this, on the left hand side, you can see, or even here you will see various options. So in this, I mean, whatever we are talking about is basically the repositories. So here, come here and then create new repository. Click on new repository. So this will create a new repository. Owner is Coder in Boots. Repository name, what I'm going to do is my GitHub project. I'm creating a new repository name, and this name need to be unique within your workspace. So see, other people can create the same name, but within yours it has to be unique. So I'm creating something with the name, a repository name with the name my GitHub project. So you can give my first. So you can create my GitHub project, and or whatever name you want. Then you can provide the description. Description is optional. Then there is an option public, private. Public means if you're creating a project with public visibility, means anyone on the internet can see this project or repository. So that's why if you see this description, it shows anyone on the internet can see this repository, but you can choose who can commit. So you can assign the permission, the commit permissions you can assign, but visibility. So that is why, like, I mean, if you just like Python code GitHub, just search for any repositories, right? You will see a lot of repositories like this. These are all public repository. That's why I'm able to see, but maybe I will not have commit access to this repository. So but you'll be able to see the projects from the internet. So all these projects, I mean, I don't have commit access, but I can see, I can download the code, I can do whatever I want with the downloaded code. Okay, but if you make it private, then it will not be visible to anyone. Anyone means, I mean, anyone on the internet. You can specify whom you need to give access. Okay, so you can choose private, and then in the permissions you can add who all can access this particular, or who all can see, who all can commit. All those you can specify the permission. So I'm going to create a public repository right now. Okay, so and then next option is, this is an optional one, add readme file. So let's say if your readme file is a file where you can add the description of maybe the overview of the project, or the steps for installation of the project, or operational steps, or whatever. Okay, those kind of things you can add it in this readme. So there is no this is just a file for the end user reference or developer reference. Okay, git ignore. So this file is basically for ignoring the unwanted files before commit. So if you specify, this is a file where you can specify what all things can be excluded from committing. Okay, so and these files will become untracked from the repository. So this is also an optional but recommended. Okay, license means, let's say if you are creating a project, so these will add the license templates. These are all optional things, but depending upon your use case you can set. I'm not selecting any of these, so I just added a readme and then hit create repository. So now my repository is ready. It has only a readme file. Okay, so this is the only thing, and the branch, if you see, this is the main branch. By default it created a main branch. So here it has the settings. You can create more branches, a lot of things you can do it from the UI, but I'm not going to do all these things from the UI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on creating or making some initial commits using my PyCharm. So I'm going to add some Python program to this, and I will show you how to make the commits from my laptop. Okay, so this is the web, GitHub web. So first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this project locally. Okay, so in this example what I am explaining is I'm going to create a project from the scratch. From the scratch means I have not started the development, so I am creating the project first in the GitHub, then I am going to do the development. Okay, I will show you another example where how to link an existing project with a new GitHub project. So because in some cases what happens, the project might have developed already, and in between you thought of, okay, I am not tracking it, so I want to add it to my version control system. So that means, I mean, your project, the code is already there, and you have to link the code to a remote repository. So in that scenario, I mean, the steps are similar, but there is a small change in the way I am doing. Okay, so first thing what we are going to do is we are going to clone or copy the URL. So if you click on the code option, you will see https ssh github CLI. Okay, so I'm going to clone it using the https URL. So click on the link, then you have to install git bash in your if you are using Windows machine, you have to use git bash or git desktop. Okay, so else if you are using Linux machine or Mac, what you need is you just need a GitHub client. Okay, so you can download and install it. So in my case what I've done is I've installed GitHub desktop. So this is a client software, and you can get it from here. Download GitHub desktop and download 64-bit. It will install the GitHub CLI as well. So I have already installed it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this project here. So the command is git clone. Okay, and then the URL whatever we have copied. Okay, you see the URL github.com /boots my GitHub project. So it is cloning. So clone means the operation will copy the code or copy the entire clone of the repository, the remote repository, to the local wherever you are copying. Now if you see here, we have the my GitHub project repository cloned. Okay, so now we are inside the GitHub project. See, we are in the main branch, git status. As we are already cloning an existing project, if you type git status, it will tell you you are on main branch, your branch is up to date with origin main, all these things, basically the status of the local repo and the remote repo. So it will show whether there is any commits pending, all those kind of things it will show you. But let's say if you go to some directory, okay, some directory means let's say a project, maybe awesome website, or yeah, Flask API app, Flask web services. Okay, this is some other project where it is not linked to the Git. So here if you type git status, you see fatal, not a Git repository, because it's not linked. Okay, so but as in the new project where the my GitHub project, right? So in this project, as we have cloned it, so the initialization of the project already happened and it is linked. Okay, it is linked with the remote repository. But this project, if you see Flask web services, this is just a local project. There is no repository created locally as well as in the remote place. So that is why if I type git status here, it's showing not a Git repository. Okay, so I will explain you how to link these kind of projects to the Git as well. So maybe after explaining this, I will cover that. My GitHub project. Let's go back to our project. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this project in my PyCharm. I'm going to make some code, add some code to this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open here. Okay, test this project. Okay, so I'm going to open. So here if you see, this is a fresh project, nothing else is there. So I'm going to add, okay, maybe a simple Python program here, app.py. You can add complex structures, a lot of things you can add, but as this is an example, right, I'm going to simply add a very simple app.py file. So maybe I'm going to do is print all. Okay, so this can be Python or whatever programming language you are using, right? So it can be anything. Okay, so I just added print hello world. So as this PyCharm ID, right, when I added the file, it automatically gave me the option to add it. Okay, so right now this is an untracked file. This app.py is an untracked file, but if you see, the Python gave me an option to add this file. Okay, so I'm not going to add it in that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just if you do ls here, you can see app.py here, but git status, if you see here, this is giving me untracked files. Okay, untracked, your branch is up to date with the origin main, but we still have some untracked files. Untracked file means basically dot idea is because I added basically I started developing added Python code, right? So dot idea got created because of that, and then this app.py is the Python program that I added here, right? So this is untracked, I didn't add it. So to add this, what we need to do, git add dot. Okay, so this git add dot, what it will do is it will add all the untracked files, okay, and make it tracked, okay, to the local repository. So this is where, I mean, we have the use of git ignore. See, dot id is not required, it's not basically anything useful for me in the remote repository. So we should ignore all these kind of dot idea and these kind of files. So that is where we use git ignore and exclude these files from getting tracked. Okay, so I'm just typing git add. So now what you will see is git status. You see, now we have dot idea, so many things got added, and again new file is app.py got or it became a tracked file. Okay, so now let's make some changes again. Maybe print program. Okay, now git status again. Okay, modified app.py because it again modified, right? So git add dot. Okay, now what we can do is next is git commit. So we need to commit this code locally, right? So git commit -m. -m is for the message. You need to type a relevant message which is readable and understandable. Okay, committing first version of code. Okay, so you need to make some readable message here. So I added. Now you see it basically 7 files added, because 7 files added because all these .idea also got added. It's not really required, but our main file app.py, okay, it committed all the changes to the local repo. Let's see whether we can see something in the remote repository here. Okay, no changes here. The reason is we didn't push anything back to the remote repository. Okay, so git status again, let's check. You see your branch is ahead of main branch. Main means the remote, origin/main is the remote branch by 1 commit. My local branch, my local copy of, or my local repo is ahead. Okay, so how we can publish it? By using git push. Git push. Once you do this, what will happen is it will push the code to the remote repository. Okay, so now it will need your credential, because till now what you have done, so you were operating, it was a public repository and you were operating in kind of read-only mode of the remote repo and writing it locally, right? But now you have to push it back to the remote repository. So that's why you need to authenticate. Okay, but in case of private repository, while cloning or while pulling itself, it will ask you for the credential. Okay, so there are different ways to authenticate. One is sign in with your browser. Okay, this is option number 1. Then sign in with a code. This is option number 2. Or using personal access token. Personal access token in the Git can be generated from here. Basically, if you go to the profile and if you go to the settings, okay, and at the end you will see something called developer settings. If you click on this developer settings, here you can see GitHub app, auth apps, personal access token. So personal access token, you can generate token. So there are 2 type of token. One is a fine-grained token. Second is the classical token. So classical token means you create the token, and the token with specific permission, the permissions will be available, or it will be across all the projects. Okay, but the new fine-grained token, what you can do is you can assign permission as well as you can set the permission to project specific. Okay, let's say you can assign permission, specific set of permissions to maybe a repository 1, repository 2, like that. I mean, you can assign the permission. So this is how, like, I mean, you can create, put the name, okay, and maybe repositories you can select, like action demo, another repository, my first project. You can select the repositories, you can add the permissions whatever you want. Repository permission means this one, administration, code scanning, code space. You can assign, like, I mean, push, pull, all those kind of permission, whatever is required, you can specify and generate the token. So you will be able to use the token for the specific set of operations. So this token is required for maybe like client applications or API level access. Okay, so that is how we use this token. Otherwise, if you are using like a web-based or kind of a laptop or a computer, you can use the simple option, sign in with your browser. For command line, I would prefer token. Okay, so I'm going to use the sign in with browser option. So what it will do is it will just ask, like, I mean, whether, I mean, authorize this permission kind of. I'm just going to authorize this. Okay, so it will just grant permission to my command line. Okay, now you see it allowed. Okay, after clicking on authorize, right, you see git push enumerating 12 done. Okay, all the pushes are committed to from local main to the target main. Now let's see what happened to our repository in the GitHub. So let's go back. Okay, so this my GitHub project is the project, and you see app.py, when it was committed, first version committed 4 minutes back, right? Now the changes came here. Okay, so now you see first program, all those things. Now git status, see your on main branch is up to date with the origin main. So now let's do another thing. Okay, so think about a scenario where somebody made a change, print okay, so made a change, or another developer made a change to this repository. So what happened? Now if you check git status, you see okay, now let's refresh again. Okay, so now if you see, so your branch is up to date. Let's see, second commit. Okay, app.py got changed, git status, your branch is up to date, but the thing is, basically we have a change over here, right? So a change happened in the remote app.py. Now I need to start my development again from my machine, right? With this latest change. What I need to do is git pull, right? So if you do git pull, you see one file changed. Okay, so that means from the remote, okay, the change, whatever we have it over there, right? The second commit, okay, second commit, we pulled it locally. That is why we used git pull. So maybe let's make another change over here. So that means the third change. Okay, unless we pull it, the changes won't appear in the local. Print commit, commit changes, commit. Okay, so this is similar to the second developer, committing from his laptop or from his device. Okay, now if you do cat app.py, you will see only second commit. Okay, the reason is this is behind our the remote repository. So if you do git pull again, what will happen? Git pull, it will pull the latest changes. Okay, unpacking. Okay, one change, one file changed, right? So now cat app.py, you see third commit. Now again he can start working on the changes, like making changes over here and pushing it back to the remote repository. Okay, so again we can let's say app.py, I can make print commit. Okay, so I made the change. Okay, git commit -m. Okay, git, oh no, we need to do git add dot git commit. Okay, then git push. You see, now the latest commit, whatever we have done it from there, you will see the fourth commit over here. Okay, so in this way you can operate with GitHub. It's very easy, and Git is not, there are a lot of other complicated or advanced features with respect to Git, because whatever changes we have done, right, all those we can track it from here. Okay, and if you go here to this repository, so you can see okay, so this right now we have only one branch, okay, main branch, and you can have multiple branches created. So, and you can commit the changes one by one to this repository, and every update or every modification that you do here, right, so that will go as a commit. If you go click here, you will see every commits happened in this particular file, and every commit there will be a commit ID as well. So you see, like the first version, and this was, if you click here, you will see the first version of commit, and you will see what was there in this in the first version, print hello world and first program, right? And then if you go back to the commits, right, updated app, the second version, right? So the second version, first program and second commit, right? Then that means, basically we can track the changes line by line. Okay, every commits you can see, and let's say if you want to revert back to a specific commit, that is also possible. Okay, so you will be able to revert back, so you can see the history of everything, and you can revert back to that particular version. Okay, so that's, you see, view commit details, view code at the point, the browse repository at the point. Okay, so copy the checksum at this particular point. All these options are possible, and you can see the commits made by specific users. You can see the commits happened between a period of time. All these capabilities are there in GitHub. That's why we are using a version control system like GitHub. So I hope this example is useful. So I'll take other videos with some more advanced operations in GitHub. So, but this will be like a beginner session for new developers to get started with or get onboarded with GitHub. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below this video. I'll respond back. Thank you.